It was the Christmas surprise that nobody wanted. The personal information attached to 40 million credit card and debit card accounts used at Target at risk. Target, the nation's second largest discounter, acknowledged data was stolen as part of a breach that began over the Thanksgiving weekend. That theft marks the second largest credit card breach in U.S. history, exceeded only by a scam that began in 2005 and affected almost 46 million card users. What do we do? Well, here to help us answer those questions is Steve Robinson, who is the area president of Risk Placement Services in Cambridge. Steve, thank you so much
for
joining us today. This is absolutely astonishing that something like what just happened at Target.
Right.
How could something like this happen?
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, in this case, this was a hacking incident involving the point-of-sale devices at Target stores. We saw something similar happen in 2012 at Barnes & Noble. We hear about these things as they occur in large retailers and in public companies typically. But what's interesting is it isn't just about hacking and about computers. And so I think one takeaway here is that a data breach doesn't necessarily have to involve a computer or a crime. And so we see these things happen in a variety of ways, have nothing to do with the internet, have nothing to do with hacking incidents, but they could be anything from paper files that are stolen from offices, medical facilities, what have you. It could be data that's released through emails that go to the wrong distribution lists, and certainly we've all probably done that in one form or another in our own business interactions that we have on a daily basis. It could be the third-party vendors that hold information of ours that we don't even really think about. So when an office, for instance, has a janitorial service or a document shredding or document storage company that comes in, they're handling information. We're entrusting that what they're going to do with it, they're going to take the same care with it that we did. But we've had clients we insure businesses against this type of risk, and we've had clients that have faxed a diagnosis to the wrong person. And so many ways that you wouldn't think of that these types of things can happen.
And we generally think of these big corporations like Target and, you know, and big apps and things like that, but this could be done on a local small business level.
Absolutely, and we're seeing a big rise, unfortunately, an increase in small businesses. A study was done last year that said that 55% of small businesses that were surveyed had said that they had experienced a data breach of some type. And why is that? Well, largely because a small business isn't as prepared as a large corporation would be. They don't have the same budgets or financial wherewithal to protect their systems, their data. Typically, they don't have the same training available to employees that a large corporation would have either. And really, that makes them an easier target for thieves who wish to get at their data.
Now, that doesn't mean don't go shop.
No, and the purpose certainly is not to create a sense of paranoia.
Right.
It's just what are some things that we can do as individuals and consumers and as businesses to help protect data, our own personal data or that of our customers.
So let's go with it. What tips do you have to protect ourselves?
Well, certainly for a business, there are many things, and it starts really with information control. Let's not keep and let's not store data that we don't need to. So in other words, if a government entity isn't telling you that you have to, then don't. So a lot of this is common sense. The controls that you have in place, who has access, who has passwords, are they changed regularly? Are they based on, a good example would be a lot of times a business when they implement a new router in their system, that router comes from the factory with a predetermined password that you're supposed to change. A lot of times people don't change them, and that's the first place that someone will go or someone who's trying to get at that information to see if they can breach a network system.
So it's perfectly acceptable for us as a consumer to ask these businesses that we're doing business with, you know, what are you doing to take care of this information that I'm giving you?
Absolutely. It's a trust. Anytime you have a relationship with a business or with someone else, it's certainly based on trust, and it's certainly acceptable and more common for you to ask these types of things. What are you going to do with the information I give you, and what is the kind of a need-to-know basis?
And speaking of information, we give out our credit card information. Is it safer to give out a credit card as opposed to a debit card, or is there a difference?
It is widely thought that a debit card, for instance, if you have a breach of your card number and that card number is a credit card number, then essentially they're playing with the bank's money. And most banks, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, have a zero liability type of policy, so that's pretty safe in that you're not going to be expected to pay that money back. However, in a debit card situation, most banks are also going to make it so that you don't have to pay for those unauthorized transactions also, but it could be a longer period of time because they're taking your money out of your account, and it could be a 2-week period or so before you're able to get that money back.
So they ask me if I want to run my card as debit or credit. If I tell them credit,
It doesn't really make a big difference in this case because if it's a debit card, it's still a debit
it's
card.
still a debit card.
We could talk about this for
Thank you so
hours,
much.
couldn't
Oh,
we?
boy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, while Target said that the breach did not affect their online purchases, your email is a very high security risk for your personal information.
Yeah, here's a look at some major email breaches just last year. The Deals site Living Social, owned in part by Amazon, suffered a massive cyber attack that required 50 million customers to reset their email passwords. The online note-taking and archiving service Evernote was also hacked last year. Usernames, email addresses, and encrypted passwords were exposed. And most recently, the photo messaging app Snapchat released the usernames and phone numbers of almost 5 million users, which it said had been acquired by exploiting a flaw in the app's privacy protections. Now, since nearly everything is done by email these days, it provides a gateway for identity thieves to get their hands on a variety of information.
So for you, here are some ways to protect yourself.
Almost everybody has one. But according to the Federal Trade Commission, email is the most common way scammers attack us. But still, many people are taking unnecessary risks with their emails, and here are 3 things you can avoid.
You've got mail.
Checking your email on an unsecure network in places like an airport or coffee shop can let scammers use malware to steal your information.
You've got mail.
Don't fall for guaranteed loan or credit card offers. Often they're just ways to get your information. Don't click on the links and delete them right away.
You've got mail.
And never reply to emails asking you to verify your information. If a bank, post office, even the IRS need to verify anything, they won't do it by email. 3 things to protect you and your email.
Well, the new normal is that, as a general rule of thumb, avoid clicking on links from people you don't know. Scammers have used fake charities, credit card purchases, airline deals to get people to follow a link.
Right, and even if the email is from a friend, if it's really vague, you should be wary. Well, identity theft is the last thing you need to deal with when you're applying to college. The process can already be stressful enough. So up next on Delmarva Life, we're going to try to make it a little easier. From how to pay for college to how to get into the school of your dreams, we'll learn how to make admission possible.
And this rolling dance chair is making mobility a lot easier for many people with disabilities. We're going to meet the woman behind it and hear the touching story of how it's changing lives. Delmarva Live, we'll be right back.